So the only way out was to go all in and straight on through, down to the roots. That is most likely why I had to return to the God of the Bible and just go all in. Become Torah observant and all of that. And the clarity about the dysfunctional nature of taking traumatized people. Okay, so the Hebrews were in Egypt. Now this is not finding fault with them. Okay, this is what happened. These are people with PTSD. Living in a might makes right world. Their children are being taken from them and drowned. According to some tradition, if they didn't make enough bricks, they would have to take their children and use them as the bricks and wall them in and listen to them scream. And we know for a fact that certain elements use sacrifices, and there are bodies that are buried in walls, like the London Bridge, which was then moved to the western United States when they built the new one. So we know these things happen. And so these people, they could not form an attachment to their children because their children could be taken at any time. So these are people who are disassociated, suffering from PTSD, who knows what other mental disorders that are a natural result of trauma. PTSD, they say post-traumatic stress disorder. No, it's post-traumatic stress discernment. Okay? So we live in a society today where everything comes with a threat. If you don't pay by this time, it will be turned off. If you don't pay by this time, it will be turned off. If you don't pay by this time, it will be taken away. If you don't pay by... Everything is under threat, under duress. Nobody today is making any legally binding agreements. And so the Hebrews came out of Egypt completely traumatized, and there's this presence that is booming. The other gods had already left. Okay? According to Sumerian tradition, Vedic tradition, the gods had already withdrawn, gone into the earth. Shakti became a part of the earth, a part of all of us. And so this was the only all-powerful consciousness left, and he took advantage of it. He was not mightier than the other gods. He was just the only one left. And so these traumatized people who are going to subject themselves to the more powerful being who promises that they won't have to put their children in walls, that their children will not be thrown into rivers and fed to alligators. They could form healthy attachments. There's that promise there of continuation, the promise of coming sanity, of leaving survival mode and moving into thrival mode. But it was made under duress, without fully informed consent. Their brains were unable to process all the information, the conditions. They consented to a curse. Who would Nobody consents to a curse who's sane. If you had your choice, you go to an electric company, it says, you will pay by the state or it will be shut off. Or you have the choice in an electric company that says, if you can't pay by this date, don't worry about it. We're not going to shut it off. We're going to make this possible for you. Okay, we're going to work together with you. You're going with that one. So when it came to, well, what kind of deity do you want? There were deities, especially in the Vedic tradition, that would have been, we will work with you. We're gonna see to you, okay? But they were presented with a choice. It's this or you're going back to Egypt. We get to live with you. Our children get to live with you. We're going with you. That's not a choice. That's not a choice. It's not fully informed consent. It is not a legally binding contract on the universal level. Nobody is bound by Torah. Nobody. And the dude doesn't even observe his own Torah. So why should you be held to something that the divine perfection of Judaism can't themselves conform to? Oh, I didn't put it out of your reach. I didn't keep it a secret. Well, hell yeah, he did. Lie, 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 lie. He's a liar. So, I had to go through that. I had to have the courage to allow these thoughts to live and take up space in my mind. And then allow myself to feel what the people felt according to the Vedic tradition and according to the Sumerian tradition when their gods left. It was organized. They knew it was happening. They knew it had to happen. It was a consciousness thing. Because human beings, mankind, was becoming aware on a different level. It used to be like fish in the ocean. Fish don't ask what the ocean is. They don't observe, I'm breathing water. And mankind was like that. But then mankind began to observe. I take a breath, this pollen comes in, and then I breathe out. They began to observe, to notice these things. And so they would notice when they noticed the gods. And then, oh, there's a difference. This being, this consciousness moves like this, and it has this form, whereas I move like this, and I have this form. And so that changed the relationship. There was no longer that sense of one being, one entity. It was a sense of, oh, we are separate, different, individuated entities. And with that individuation, that realization, came the separation. And then the separation got greater and greater and greater. You know, oh, well, your abilities are greater than mine, and you live longer than I do, and the pushing away, and so that's the road that we have been on. And it's widened and widened and widened and widened until mankind did not realize that they are of earth. So now, in the beginning was the dance. I just got done describing to you what the dance was. It was the movement of everything within the oneself, not perceiving that it was anything but the oneself. And then the separation. And so the breathing in, the pulling back of that which we call divine and do not identify with. Pulling it back, like sucking your stomach, lift your chest. There's a child scooting by. Make room, make room. At some point, you gotta let that breath back out. And so, it is like the city, according to Vedic tradition, that the sea pulled back to be created for the avatar, the incarnation. I don't like that. Avatar is more appropriate in my mind. Of the divine masculine, his city, and then the warning, well, the ocean, the tide's going to come back in, it's going to cover the city. That is what creation is about. The dance pulls back. Woo! Let him through, let him through. And then it releases. But only those who can breathe with it and release with it, in oneness with it, let the children through. Okay. Are not washed away when that tide comes back in, when that breath is released and drawn back in and make room for more children. Oh, oh, oh. And so where we are at in this time is the releasing of the breath, the return of the ocean, the waves coming in. And what mankind has been on a journey of is a combination of the Highlander, there can be only one, and the accent, it's funny, and the Hunger Games, the most fit for survival. Who's your candidate? Who are you pulling for? So we have entities and beings that have been in existence, who have been riding these waves, the inhale and the exhale, for multiple cycles. And they are the result of avatars, and that which existed before the avatars came into being. So they have been contending, possessing, taking possession, becoming, incarnating as man, pushing aside the natural born consciousness and taking over the life, moving, changing, becoming significant. And the one that stands out in my mind is Saint Germain. Generation after generation, he's going to become this avatar. That's it. However, the rules state that it is a natural, organic man that grows until they are able to embody, make a home for the thoughts that will be the personification of the divine masculine for the upcoming age. So we have, for example, a man on the scene. He says, I am the Mahdi. I am the reincarnated Christ. I am this, I am that, I am that. Are you, dude? Are you really? I don't know. The masculine's got to go do the masculine thing. But it's appropriate that he was born as a human being and is able to embrace the thoughts of the divine masculine. And I have done absolutely no research. I have no idea what his teachings are, what philosophies, what practices. I have not even begun to look into it. It's just been irrelevant because just some. I'm not for the front man, okay? Who insists that they are this person. But what the Abrahamic tradition does not factor in and allow is for Shakti. Where will she focus her consciousness and create of a wombed man, a woman? Allow that woman to be her avatar, her representative. And it's been a Highlander movie and the Hunger Games combination thing. Who's the most fit? Put her through this. How does she come out? How does she deal with it? Is she fierce? Is she kind? Is she gentle? Is she submissive? Does she survive it? And these eternal beings who have been through this several times, except for Saint Germain, he hasn't been. He didn't know. He was hoping to be the guy, okay? Anyways. It's been the same principle. The quickening. That's why King David, I always wondered, quickening, what is the quickening? King David begged for the quickening so he could become the Messiah. Absorb those qualities, get that anointing to be that Messiah that the Hebrews were waiting for. They thought Samson before him was possibly the Messiah. He kept falling for bad women. But again, the PTSD passed down from generation after generation, they could not cognate what an appropriate Messiah would be. And sexual purity was not a quality of the Abrahamic tradition amongst its elite, its royalty. They could read your king must have one wife, but not a single one of them. And you must not marry women of other belief systems, but they all did. It's like they'd write it because all the kings were required to write down the Torah, their own copy of it, and read it every day. So they wrote it down, they read it every day, but it never penetrated because of the disassociation that comes with trauma, which is a coping mechanism and natural. So these people were not evil, They were disassociated. They were traumatized. And they passed that trauma from generation to generation as they were thrust into it. You gotta love the people. You gotta show love to the nations. But they're gonna kill you if you don't behave. Oh, we agree to that. Okay. That's not fully informed. Like, their cognitive abilities were not formed adequately to receive that understanding. They could not cognate that that's not appropriate. Any legal contract made under duress is invalid. If somebody comes and holds a gun to your head and you sign over everything you own, you go to court and you say that signature was only there because he held a gun to my head. The court will say, yeah, that's not legal. You can't do that. So why do the courts in heaven think that a deity could hold a mountain, an ocean, the Red Sea, in front of these people and say, you will walk my way or you will drown, or I will crush you with this mountain, or I will burn you with the lava flowing from this mountain due to my presence? That is not legally binding. Nope. It is not fully informed consent. It is not a mutual agreement. Especially if the dude's a hypocrite. Come on. So, this is where I am. Aware of where we are on the cosmic level. Finally cleansed of a religious tradition that I was dedicated to as a child, because I was baptized as a Roman Catholic child. And, of course, my father was a member of the Masonic Lodge. He had come out of the military, most likely, MK Ultra. My mother's side of the family, very covetous of power and stuff like that. So, yeah, I had to go straight for the roots, and have the courage to allow contrary thoughts, those forbidden thoughts, to land and have a home in my mind. And I did that. I do not like psychologists. They're usually hypocrites. But the world of psychology did bring us emotional intelligence, which affects how congruent our cognitive abilities are. And so it has been a very long process of rectifying everything within myself to come to clarity, because I would receive absolutely clear such and such an understanding, but this, which was cemented, sealed, signed, and there were probably blood rituals involved to keep it in me, was already there, and there was no room for this. So now this has fallen apart, and there's room for clarity on both sides of me. And so my masculine and feminine are not cooperative, and so my spirit, my soul, and my body can now be in cooperation with one another, and I can be the full embodiment of a pure reciprocal love that is as natural as breathing. And I adore it. I love it. I cherish it. It's precious. I'm working on cherishing. But I guess cherishing might be something separate. I don't know. But I am open to reaching those levels of oneness with divine compassion and understanding and knowledge. And I hope this helps somebody else break through. If not, it's my statement to the universe. A declaration. I know what's happening. Peace be with you.